I thought this would be a fun one. This is a game that I played versus Jack Allen. This is a practice game that we had a couple of weeks ago. But what's interesting about it is we then ended up playing at the event we were both at, which was the event I then went on to win at the TSN Arena last weekend. This is the round 3 pairing, and the lists are almost exactly the same. My list is the same. Jack made some very slight tweaks, bumped the gutter runners up to 12, made some cuts across the way, just to make the list a little bit more efficient. But the meat and the bones of the list are exactly the same. So obviously playing against someone that you've played at an event, playing someone at an event that you've had a practice game into is it's always a little concerning, because it's nice to know what your opponent's going to do, but the mirror is true as well. They know what you're going to do. So it comes down to, who do you think is better at coming up with plans on the fly, or just how do you think lists interact? So I think this is quite a fun one to look at and go through. For my list, just very quickly, I've talked about it a couple of times. It is the same as the list I took to LGT. So it's a Dreadlord on a Black Dragon with a 2-up save against shooting, a 3-up save against magical shooting, a 4-up save in combat. I've got a great weapon. I've got the Pendant of Kaleth, which is a 5-up ward, or if you're strength 5 or greater, it is a 4-up ward, which is obviously fantastic at not getting shot off the board by cannons and grudge throwers and the like. I then have the second dragon, which is a Supreme Sorceress, who is a level 4, Battle Magic, Black Dragon, Tome of Fury for a 5th spell, Talisman of Protection for a 5-up ward, and then 2 Focus Familiars. This is the spice, but honestly, the more I played with this caster, the less I thought it mattered. At the event that I was at, I ended up rolling Pillar of Fire either once or twice. I can't remember exactly how many times, but the list works really well without it. It's just nice to have the Focus Familiars. What the Focus Familiar does is you pick a point within 12 inches of the caster, and that allows you to cast the spells from there. So effectively, you can cast a Pillar of Fire 24 inches from your location turn 1, which means obviously you can drop it in your opponent's lines, but also you can do it from outside of the spell range, which is really nice. In core, I've got 3 units of 8 Dark Riders. All of them have shields. All of them have repeated crossbows. 2 of them are upgraded to have Fire and Flee and Scout, and that's because it's 1 upgrade per 1,000 points each. I've got a unit of Cold One Knights, which have full plate armor. They've got a command, they've got a banner and they've got a champion. The champion has a Ruby Ring of Ruin, and the banner is the Banner of Harganeth, giving them AP 1 on their Cold One attacks, which is really nice, because you've got, if you go into the second or third round of combat, you've got 3 attacks at strength 4, getting those to AP 1 is really nice. It also gets the Lancers to AP 3, which is not nothing. I've also then got 3 units of 5 Shades. One of those units has Veteran. I'm not really sure why it's not come up on the screen there, but 2 units without Veteran, 1 unit with, just, again, I had some spare points. So nice and simple. You know the list, you've seen the list. On the other side of the board, Jack has been playing around with variations of the Skaven Death Star. Obviously, I've played a lot with the Gutter Runner Cloud that flies around with Demonology. Anubis over in Germany has been playing a Plague Monk brick. Jack has played with a Clan Rat brick, and he's now trying the Storm Vermin out as well. So it's basically the way to make a Skaven work is multiple level 4 casters. So glad to see that we're all in agreement on that. His list is a Battle Magic level 4 with the Storm Demon and the Warpstone token, and then he also has a level 4 Elementalism caster, Power Scroll, Lore Familiar, Ruby Ring of Ruin. The Warpstone tokens just come default. He hasn't bought additional ones here. What this means is he's got 2 level 4s. The Elementalism caster's picking spells, so it's going to be Travel Mystical Pathways, Plague of Rust. It's going to be the Wind Blast as well, probably, and then you're going to take the Magic Missile. Jack really likes going for Warp Lightning, which is casting a 10, D3 plus 1, auto hit, strength 5, AP 3. So quite nice into some of the targets I've got, such as the Cold One Knights here. He's also got a BSB Chieftain, who's got Light Armor, Halberd, Battle Standard Bearer, Storm Banner. Storm Banner is in fact, he actually made a tweak to it between this game and the tournament that we were at. So in this game, Storm Banner gives you 1 turn of all of your opponent's ballistic skill shooting is at -1 to hit, and also turns off fly for an entire turn. There's no roll, it's just you pay 65 points for the banner, it works for 1 turn, pick it well. The change that he made between here and the actual tournament is he went for the Banner of Verminous Scurrying, which gives you Swift Stride, which I think is a better choice, and it's how I build my Skaven lists. Into the oh yes, and of course there's a second chieftain as well, heavy armor, cautious shield, and this is just to soak up challenges. Basically, you've got a lot of static combat res in the storm vermin brick, and you just want to make sure that if dragons hit you, you're going to beat them in the challenge, you're going to double outnumber them, and anything other than a give ground, they're going to flee, and hopefully you run them down, especially if you make that change over to the banner of verminous scurrying. It's a bit of a mouthful. Jack in core has got 2 units of 20 clan rats. Jack's a big believer of not going, frivolous upgrades, so he doesn't even run the rattling guns. I do like the rattling guns, but I can see why he doesn't. He's got 10 night runners, which are a bunker for one or both of the casters, usually just the battle magic, the elementalism caster. Sorry, there is a 400 point brick of storm vermin, which, if I remember correctly, halberds, shields, full command, and also the banner of grand superiority, which is an additional D3 to the combat res. And then finally 3 units of gutter runners. Here they are 11 with slings. At the event they were 12 with slings. So very similar numbers. Into deployment, and again, I can only apologise for all of the mess on the screen. This is what you get in a skirmisher matchup, but it comes off in a second, so we'll see it more clearly. So I have 3 drops in this list, which means that no matter who wins the roll-off for deployment, I'm going to get the +1 to go first, which is really nice to pick up. So going my drops, I started off with the Doomfire. They were labelled as Doomfire Warlocks, that's it, yes. I labelled them as Doomfire Warlocks because they are the Dark Riders without any upgrades, just to make it easier for us to track in-game. So this is the unit of Dark Riders that deployed normally. Then I've got the unit of Cold One Knights that deployed on the line, because I wasn't super worried about his shooting. I think I put them down after I'd seen where the Storm Vermin were going. And then finally, I've got the 2 dragons, the Supreme Sorceress, because she really doesn't want to get shot by all that poison. I've got the Dark Elf Dreadlord, who is just not worried at all about the poison shooting. I've got a 2-up save, so that means that Jack can put 66 poison shots into me, and sure, 11 of them will poison on average, but I will fail just under 2 of those, and then I'll probably save 1 of those on the regen, on the ward save, I should say, sorry. So, his entire poison shooting is going to do, realistically, 1 wound to me on average dice. However, the Sorceress only has a 4-up save, so she is taking a little more safe. Then we got into the scout roll-off, and Jack won to go first on the scouts, and he put down a unit of gutter runners here, taking up a middle bit of the board space. Jack and I have played a lot now with scouts, and I think this is the roll-off that really decides the pace of the game. I think if you're playing a heavy scout versus scout matchup, whoever goes first is really in the driver's seat. So Jack takes this little area space here, which is a nice center hole there taken up. I then throw 5 shades into the meat grinder. I decide that I don't want him taking up any of this space here. He deploys his second unit, which is just next to the first unit, so he's really consolidating that middle position. I then put a unit of shades up to the right, and that is to make sure that I am not risking having this area taken as well. I want to limit Jack as much as possible. So Jack puts his 3rd unit down, which is just over here. I've got evasive, so I'm not super worried about the shades being shot. I can always just fall back through the Dark Riders. I actually deploy this unit of Dark Riders on the flank in open order instead of in skirmish. Normally I do skirmish for everything, but because I knew I was going to be fleeing with this unit as soon as they got shot, I just didn't want to cause the panic into the Dark Rider. Skirmishes don't cause panic into non-skirmishes, so a little bit of a trick there if you want to make sure you're getting out. And then I had this unit of shades just deployed behind the hill, but in a comfortable spot so that they could get out of range or stand and shoot, move up onto the hill. If you've got evasive and you're a shooting unit, playing around a hill is really strong. You can walk up onto the hill, you get shot, you evasive back, you then walk back onto the hill, then you get shot, you evasive back. Your opponent's wasting their shooting, and you're hidden behind an infinitely tall bit of terrain, which is quite nice to have. Other than that, the other unit of Dark Riders was down here in the center, but just to the right of the ones deployed behind the building. But that unit is, despite being close together, they are deployed in skirmish. So just 1 unit in close order over on the right over here, and then I've got a unit in skirmish, a unit in skirmish. Perfect stuff. So I'm feeling pretty good about deployment. Jack's gone very far to the back. We did have a chat. I had no way to make him fall back other than, just killing enough stuff. But realistically, I probably wasn't going to be able to do that on turn 1. And I mention that because up at the top here, you can see the gutter runners and the Grey Seers straight up at the top of the map. I won the roll-off. This is not super surprising. I finished my deployment first, which means that I got the +1. Getting the +1 means that you've got about a 68, 69% chance of going first. So, felt pretty comfortable with it. But you've always got to deploy as if you go second. Otherwise, you lose a lot of games. So, deploy so you can take advantage of things, but also be feel good about where you're going. This is an interesting matchup. We both are quite heavy in the shooting, but we're both skirmishers, so the shooting coming out back at us is slightly limited, and also a chunk of our units have evasive. All of Jack's important stuff that's deployed up in the middle board has evasive. Mine doesn't. Mine's just the shades. The Dark Riders, sorry, don't have evasive, so that is something to be a little concerned about. Turn 1, I knew that I wanted to make the most of my fly. Jack's probably going to turn it off early. It's really important in terms of making sure I don't get additional +1s to hit, or getting an additional manus to hit, so I'm less likely to kill his gutter runners and he can shoot me back and get the damage in, but also stopping those dragons pressuring him turn 1. That's quite important. So what I did was I sent the Dreadlord into the center here, and I moved the level 4 sorceress up just on the other side of the woods. What I've done here is I've made sure I'm staying well out of range of anyone who's able to walk forwards, even if they get teleported forwards, just given where my screening units are. I'm pretty comfortable that I'm not going to take any serious damage on the sorceress. The Dreadlord has flown forwards, making sure to stay out of 24 inches of his, 21 inches of his Plague of Rust. This is really important for not, getting down to that 4-up save myself, and then the poison starts to tick through. So the important thing, or the interesting thing about this turn, I would say, is I had to really think about how I wanted to layer my casting and my shooting. So I started off, because you can see here where everything moved from. I started off by putting my shots from the cold one, I'm going to keep doing it, my Dark Riders that were in open order, and the shades in veteran. I threatened his unit of gutter runners that were deployed basically in his deployment zone. So I declare that I'm shooting with this entire unit here into Jack's unit over here in the back. He decides to evasive back. He doesn't want to take the risk. I've got repeater crossbows. Yes, it's only strength 3 with no AP and only armor bane 1, but gutter runners are T3 and they don't have any armor, so any shots that go through have a pretty high chance of converting. So I start off with the Dark Riders here. I shoot into the gutter runners. I do still get the shots, but they are further back, and I take a long range penalty where I think I might not have been taking it before, or maybe Jack just thought he had a chance to get out of range. So not much happens. I don't think I actually managed to kill anyone. The layered minuses to, move and shoot, multi-shot, long range, skirmish, I'm hitting on 7s. So I think I may have just done single shot to make sure that those poison shots were going through. But in the end, I didn't actually do anything important. I don't even have poison. I'm thinking of Skaven. Yeah. So I was hitting on 7s. I don't manage to get anything done with that first unit. Second unit, I then try and cast Fireball from the Ruby Ring of Ruin, from the Cold One Riders, and I cast that into this squad over here. This is something that Jack absolutely needs to avoid, so he has to evasive. The reason I've done it in this way is I didn't want this squad to get out of dodge here, because they would have fled through the unit that was here, and then have gone all the way back through this unit that's in the woods, and they'd have been fairly safe on this side. And what I feel like there are 3 units in the middle that I can just put pressure into. Jack's gone a little ballsy with his deployment, honestly, and I want to try and punish that. So I wanted to make sure that he couldn't flee through multiple units, make that unit flee first, shoot into this unit, jobs are good. They fall back. I then put some shots in with the Shades who are on the hill. As I've mentioned, moving up onto the hill, evasive's really strong, and the unit of Dark Riders down here, and this unit of Dark Riders. I think I get 3. Yeah, it looks like I get 3 kills, which is fine. They're now out of position. They're going to be shooting at long range. They're probably going to have to move towards me to get some shots in, so I'm not super worried about the recompense. And I've pushed my opponent out of his position that he wanted to be in. Last thing I did is I cast my Pillar of Fire over here, and as always, I have to use my once per game reroll to get the spell off. It's weird. You cast it on a 9, so you only need a 5 on the dice. You're casting from outside of your opponent's dispel range, but I find that I need to use the reroll spells pretty often. It's pretty much every time the first spell I cast that I care about, it just doesn't go off, so you use it there. But it's great. It's just good to have. Would love to be High Elves and have the second one, but, well, one every turn. But what are you going to do? So my turn's over. I've pushed Jack out of position. I've cast a Pillar of Fire that's in a really nice spot to hit the Gutter Runners, because that's the sort of strongest thing against Gutter Runners. They can't avoid Pillar of Fire. Can't evasive out of that, can you? Coming into Jack's turn. Here we go. You can see here, Pillar of Fire moves through the unit, does kill 3 of them. Really nice for me. That unit then gets hit with the Earthen Rampart spell. Obviously, Jack doesn't want to march his big damage output, but he does want to make them more survivable, so giving them a ward. The other 2 units sort of consolidate over onto the flank, and between the 3 units, they put out more hurt than I was expecting, honestly. They kill 5 of the Dark Riders in the center here, and they kill, I think, 7 of the 8 in this squad on the right-hand flank. So a lot of my shooting is gone already, which, to me, makes me go, I probably need to put some more pressure on with the dragons, which is really probably what I should have been doing in the matchup. And it is an adaptation that I made in the game that we played, actually at the event. The other things that happen is you see this unit up at the top, the Storm Vermin, they just start moving around the building. Jack really likes playing around buildings. It's a big, valuable unit. You can limit how many opponents can get into you if you're playing around a building. Obviously, impassable terrain is very good for doing things like that. And also, you've got the Elementalism caster, so what you can do is you can just sit there and go, okay, you're getting close to me. I'm going to teleport to the other side. Now you're really out of position, and I can set up for a charge on my next turn, or just keep playing the run around the roses game, while the Gutter Runners do a lot of the heavy lifting and pick you up plenty of points. So it's a little bit of points denial in that way there. So Jack's turn 1, a surprising amount of shooting, kills, as far as I can tell here, 12 of the 12 of the Dark Riders, which is more than I'm comfortable with. On the left-hand flank here, you can see that his unit of Clan Rats move up, and they just start moving towards the Shades. Dark Elf names, man. I get them mixed up all the time. Coming in around 2, I decide, okay, cool. You have now put yourself in a position where I want to be violent, and I'm going to do so. So I don't charge with anyone, actually. I looked at the charge ranges, and I thought chances were Jack would be able to get out if he, fled, or he'd be able to put me into an awkward angle, and I didn't want to just stand and be shot. So what I end up doing is I move the Dreadlord forwards, and I move the other dragon, the level 4 sorceress, sideways here. The Shades on the left-hand flank move backwards, doing some fleeing shots into the 80-point Clan Rats that they're facing off against. They'll whittle them down eventually, getting a single kill. The Pillar of Fire does pick up some nice shots here, but Jack has been careful to leave a 3-inch gap between the 2 units. That's something that you absolutely should be doing. If you're playing against Pillar of Fire, make sure there are no points between 2 units that are 3 inches close, because otherwise you're just going to have a bad time as a Pillar of Fire rips through your entire army. The single model here that survived on the right-hand flank for me just runs away. The Shades move up to try and get out of charge arcs and also still be able to shoot. And apart from that, everyone else just moves up into shooting range. Between the Dark Riders that are in the center of the board and the Cold One Riders, the Cold One Knights, I should say, who do end up marching up because they're not in range to fireball into anything that's super important, I do kill another 4 of the Gutter Runners in the center there. This is great. Obviously, I want to whittle down the Gutter Runners, but really what I'm trying to do is pin in Jack as much as possible. So I'm applying a lot of pressure into the center of the board, but I've got 2 dragons that can sweep round to the left-hand side. What I want to try and do is deal with this caster here, because he's the one who can help Jack get out of dodge. So a decent turn 2, and coming into Jack's turn 2, you see things go pretty well for him as well. On the left-hand flank, the Clan Rats make the charge into the Shades. I'm thinking it's going to be fine. I fire 10 shots into the squad. I fire 10 shots in with standard shoot. I kill 1 model. It gets into combat. I have the higher initiative. Or, sorry, he's Skaven. He has the higher initiative. He does nothing. He whiffs. I then attack back. I roll loads of 1s and 2s. Despite my weapon skill 5, I absolutely just fail to do anything. That combat's fine. I just give ground, the Clan Rats follow up, and I realise that I've probably lost this side of the board, and I've lost the 75 point into the 80 point unit. But that's okay. Jack teleports the unit here on the left, which has the Elementalism caster, teleports it over to behind the hill, just making sure that he's out of charge arcs as much as possible, or that if I charge, he's going to be able to flee. And other than that, it's all of the gutter runners again, focusing into the center of the board where possible, and doing as many shots as possible into the Dark Riders. This is a pretty effective turn. I'm running out of chaff units quite quickly, and while none of my units have actually died, I'm in a position here where I'm going to struggle to keep them alive if I do return shots. The Plague of Rust going off on the cold ones is a little terrifying, honestly, taking them to just a 4-up save. A lot of damage can be done into them. A couple of them die to magic missiles. A combination of the Warp Lightning and the Plague of Rust means they just get no save at all. And I'm really lucky that Jack only rolls a 1 on his number of shots. So he gets 2 hits, rolls a 1 to wound, rolls a 4 as well, or something along those lines. And I'm left with 4 of the Cold One Riders left, which is fine, but also starting to get into that realm of, I don't love this. I need to be a little bit cautious. On the top right of the board, from my perspective, you can see that the clan rats are not interested in the shades just walking around them and shooting, so they've turned to face. But really, we're sort of narrowing into this little section of the board. Coming into my turn 3, I decide that the way that I'm going to win this game is not through out shooting him. Jack's going to win the shooting battle. So I shuffle back with all the units that are super low. I've got a unit of 3 Dark Riders that I decide is probably worth leaving there. They're far enough away that I'm not super concerned. And then I've got the 5 Shades as well. They can obviously evasive off the hill. Jack hasn't been shooting them because he's aware of the trick I'm trying to pull. The Cold One Riders, they just shuffle back 3.5 inches, but they make sure that they can still be in range of and shoot the Gutter Runners. And all of the small units just run away down here. On the left-hand flank, my Dreadlord tries to go for the bait, charges into the Night Runners there. And on the left-hand bottom side of the map, my level 4 Sorceress turns around to deal with the Clan Rats because, we're in the points denial game. We're both trying to run a points denial list. So if I can keep my 75 points alive and kill his 80 points, I'm up 155 points. And that's, effectively a bracket in the scoring system that we've been using. The Shades on the right-hand flank do just move up again. Keep taking shots. I do just the combination of moving, multi-shots, the cover as well. I'm just not doing anything into these Clan Rats. And honestly, I think this was a pretty poor decision to try and force them to do something up here. But I think what I ended up trying to do was get round the back and catch these 2 Gutter Runners who were not particularly happy about their life choices. There was only a couple of them left. And again, I want to try and mop up those last couple of models. Into Jack's turn 3. Unfortunately, as you can see over here, the Night Runners that were fleeing, they do continue to flee. They don't rally and they run off the board. Something that I didn't mention, actually. I was wrong. The Elementalism caster does join the big brick before the Night Runners move off to the left-hand side to be chased to death by a dragon. The Clan Rats win the combat down the bottom left, as you can see here. But again, the Shades just fall back and combat continues to a point where, my dragon's going to be in there soon. I'm not concerned about it. The Cold One Riders do take some real damage. They take some magic missile output. And on the right-hand side as well, 2 of the 3 Dark Riders that are still left that were there trying to shoot and finish off the Gutter Runners, they take some damage, and I do end up fleeing. Going to need a double 1 to rally from that one, which is probably not going to happen. But as you can see, I'm really running on the last dregs of units here. Up in the top right, Jack decides that he doesn't want to risk the charge. It's something like a 10 or 11, so I think he needs a 5 on the dice. But because he's in the difficult terrain, he's going to need a 5 on the lowest of the 2d6, so it seems unlikely, which is why he doesn't go for the charge down here. Which is probably right, because he'd fail the charge, stumble forwards a little bit. I'd have easier access to the juicy points of the skirmishing units behind them. So, coming into my turn 3, and the dragons decide that what we want to do is try and sandwich the storm vermin. Want to get into the middle, sit round behind them, and jobs are good. And the reason I decide to go for this is instead of sending the dragon into the big brick of of Skaven there, the Clan Rats, I flank charge with the unit of 2 Dark Riders. It's enough to, just get in and win the combat on combat res, They end up breaking and fleeing. I chase them down with swift stride, so all good stuff there. The Cold One Knights just turn and flee. I do Arcane Urgency them to get them a little bit further away. And as you can see here on the bottom, the lone Dark Rider does decide that life isn't all it's cracked up for to be and flee to their doom. On the hill, I do have the 5 shades. These are the veterans just taking pot shots. They still put shots into the gutter runners that have got earthen ramparts. Obviously, this is not a fight that they're going to win long term, but I'm playing around with the fact that, yes, you're going to try and shoot me. I'm going to run away. The shades in the top right do continue to circle around, and we just continue to play our little game of cat and mouse where each of us is trying to get the advantage long term. Jack's turn 4. Jack's down to the dregs of his army. He's now got 2 units of 2 gutter runners, so they're not going to do very much. A unit of clan rats that's just sort of sat in the terrain, and the rules pack that we're playing has the woods playing as dangerous terrain, not just difficult. What it does mean is that if you've got models that don't have move through cover, you probably don't want to sit in cover. Fortunately, shades and gutter runners both do enjoy the move through cover life, but not every unit does. So those clan rats do start taking some wounds as they maneuver around. As I was saying, the 2 units of gutter runners are just sort of trying to stay safe as much as possible. And over on the top side, the gutter runners move forwards. A couple of them manage to tow onto the hill. I think just the one actually toes onto the hill, but I roll really low on my evasive and I don't actually make it off the hill, which is unfortunate. I think I roll a 1 and a 2 and I need a 3 on the dice to get off the hill. So slightly unfortunate there, but I only lose 1 model, so I can't complain too much. In the center here, as you can see, the Storm Vermin brick is teleported again and is now facing towards the dragon. Jack's pretty keen for me to get a single charge, like a 1 dragon in, especially if it's the sorceress, because I'm less likely to max out my overkill. And at this point, the massive static combat res that you've got in there with the extra D3 from the Banner of Grand Superiority, the ranks, the Horde. I think they've got Horde. Can't remember off the top of my head. Not run them myself. But you end up with, I think it's 7 to 9 combat res with the BSB in there. It's either 7 to 9 or 6 to 8. But it's enough to be very comfortable going into a dragon, basically. All the magic missiles go into the sorceress and dragon, and she fails 1 whole save, so takes a single wound there. Pretty sure that one came from a warp lightning. A great spell. If you're a Skaven player and you want to get as much output as possible, do give warp lightning a go. You've just got to play a little fast and loose with your life and make sure you're using those warpstone tokens to best effect. Turn 5, we're looking at the dregs of the game, and I'm trying to work out how I can get all of the points, basically. Because while most things on the board are the dead, I've lost 1 unit, and then I've got 1 unit that's below 25%. I think that's it. Or maybe a second unit of shades is dead. No, it's literally just that. Jack's lost more than me, but he does have the possibility of picking up some bits and pieces. I want to make sure that I'm getting a firm victory here, so I'm going for the mop-up. With that in mind, I send the Dreadlord towards the unit of clan rats, but also towards the 2 units of gutter runners. I'm not really bothered what I kill. If I kill a unit of clan rats, I get 80 points. The goal here is trying to set up a terror test into this unit of clan rats, have them flee, flee twice, get off the board, something along those lines, and then redirect into one of the units of gutter runners. That would be really nice, and I'd be able to mop up the most points that way. The shades come around the side here to try and shoot into this unit of 2 gutter runners. They don't manage to do anything. Too many layers, malices to hit. And the shades on the right-hand side, again, just try and get out of the way as much as possible. I do drop a pillar of fire right in front of the unit of Storm Vermin. This isn't for the Storm Vermin. This is to go through and hit the gutter runners. Again, these are the things that are going to mop up the points of Jack, so I'm trying to finish them off. And as you can see here, I've moved, so it's not an easy charge, because what I want to try and do is set up for a charge into something that's in this section of the board in Jack's next turn. I'm aware that he could charge into me, but if he does, I can flee, theoretically. I've got a reasonable leadership, so I'm not super worried about that. I don't really want to be in that combat, but it depends what Jack does. So I drop the Pillar of Fire, make it so that I can maybe pick up those gutter runners on turn 6, and just set up at the top side as well to try and get the charges in. On to Jack's turn 5. The gutter runners don't take very much damage, actually. The Pillar of Fire does go through and kills, I think, maybe one Storm Vermin, one Gutter Runner, something like that, or maybe even less. I think I rolled fairly horrendously with it this turn. They do move up onto the hill, so even with my evasive, which I do roll because it stops me from fleeing again if things go really badly, he shoots into the shades, kills a couple of them, down to 2. Again, I'm starting to be a little concerned about the life of the unit, but again, it's only 75 points, so we're going for the trade-offs there. Jack then does some quite nice positioning, honestly. So the unit of 2 here is tucked in just behind the woods, and because they're behind the woods, I can't see them, which makes it harder for me to get into, basically. The other unit just runs away as far as possible. I'm not 100% sure why I didn't decide to put both of them behind the wood. After he had the good idea to do the first one, I think it would have made sense for the second one. Or maybe it was the overrun here. He was worried about the Dark Elf Sorceress coming in on the dragon, killing one, overrunning into the second, and just getting a lot of points. So maybe that was the game plan there to prevent that from happening. I don't love this up in the top right-hand corner. The clan rats move further away from the dragon. I think they would have been best off served just stood still. So then if the terror testers go wrong, they don't fly off the board. But Jack's just trying to spread his units as much as possible so I don't get to kill something, overrun, and then get it again. Because we're going into the final stage of the game. As you can see as well, I've just bunkered everything. Everything that's on low wounds is hiding in the corner or up in the top left-hand side. Really don't want to lose those points at this point of the game. So coming into my last turn, I do manage to mop up some nice points, and I declare 2 charges. The first charge I declare is the Dreadlord into the unit that is on the edge there. They pass their terror test, I make it into them, kill enough, and they flee off the board. The second charge I declare is the Sorceress, charging over the Storm Vermin. Like I've said a couple of times, I really don't want to mess around with that combat res brick. It could go very wrong. So I charge into the Gutter Runners. They declare a flee, so they just run off, and yeah, it is what it is. They've only got leadership 7, so I'm hoping that they're going to fail. I knew that they were going to flee, but I couldn't just do nothing. The shades that are up at the top-hand side that have been just sat there for the entire game, messing around with that clan rat unit, they do tow into the woods, and they do finally kill the unit of Gutter Runners that's behind there. It's nice. It does pick up a fair chunk of points for me. And other than that, that's it for my game. I've left myself no risky charges. I'm not going to get caught by the Storm Vermin. So it comes into Jack's turn to see if he can do anything with his magic missiles to score some final points for the game. And he can't. He doesn't manage to. So, as always, it doesn't seem to report the score on here. But from memory, it was something on the lines of either a 16-4 or a 17-3. It was quite a strong victory for me. So I didn't get anything here in this big character brick or Storm Vermin. So maybe it was actually less. Maybe it's a 13-7. But on the other hand, Jack only picks up 1 full unit of Dark Riders, 174 points. And then he picks up a quarter of another unit as well. So we're looking at really about less than 250 points for Jack. Whereas on the other hand, I've picked up, a good chunk of everything else. But it was a great game. It's, I think, one of my favorite games to play is the skirmish versus skirmish matchup. It's a lot different to the regular games of Old World that you might be seeing at your events or tables. But it's a lot of, you've got to really plan out where your opponent's going to be because there's so much mobility in the game compared to what you're expecting in a rank and flank game. Also, dragons, obviously, incredible. Really did a lot of heavy lifting, just the positioning. But dragons aren't necessarily as good in a skirmish matchup because your opponent might be able to just get out of the charge arcs, which is something that is, maybe not something to complain about when dragons are as strong as they are, but it is an interesting dynamic that you have to play around with in the skirmish matchup.